Hey, I am Stacy, the owner and artist of New Creations by Stacy. I've been off for a little bit this month. I've had a few custom projects to get done, so I'm just coming on live again. I'm just going to make sure that I am truly live because I've had some issues with that before, but here we go. All right, so if you're just popping on, just say hey, where you're watching from. Just to give you a little bit of information here before we get started and start working on our project today. Again, I'm Stacy with New Creations by Stacy, the owner and artist. I'm an elite Dixie Belle retailer at the Rustic Willow in Ardmore, Alabama. And then I still have my location here in Madison as well. So I can't wait to see if I have some regular people on. I haven't done a live in so long. But in the description, I have all the products that we're going to be using tonight. You should be able to swipe up or down depending on your phone to see that. You can also like and follow me on Facebook. You'll be able to see final pictures of how everything turns out. And then, of course, I usually just post the videos there along with the finished piece as well if you missed anything. Also, I do have my affiliate link, so if you do want to order any of the products tonight, you can order from there. Doesn't cost you anything extra, and actually there's a special promotion going on as well. If you order $100 from the Dixie Belle website, and it's usually about $10 in shipping, comes really quick, but you get a free garnet mousse, which is perfect for the holiday coming up. But anyway, digressed a little bit. So tonight we are going to be, and I do have Dixie Belle on as well. Hey Dixie Belle. But tonight we're going to be working with some no pain gel stain walnut to stain the top of this piece, and going over a couple different methods on how you can apply that. And then we'll also be creating this kind of layered blendy finish here as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. Just to catch you up kind of to where I'm at, and if you're starting your own. Oh, thanks Myra. Hey Jerry. Hey Tammy. Hey Kelly. All right, so just to kind of catch you up to where we're at, this piece was such a heavy bleeder. It's a really old antique table, and it was really nasty and dirty when I got it. I think some dogs had chewed on it, so I did go ahead and clean it with White Lightning. So this stuff is awesome, lasts forever. If you redo furniture, it's a TSP-based solution. It's specifically designed for prepping your piece. It's a deglosser, as well as it's going to get all the grease, grime, stuff like that off of it. So once you clean it with this, I've had this for 1.5 years. If you are familiar with me, I paint all the time. It truly lasts forever. I would mix mine up in a Windex bottle, spray it on, scrub it, and then rinse it with water. When I did that, it continued to look dirty, so I knew that it was going to be a bleeder. So I did go ahead and put 2 coats of Boss on it, which blocks the tannins from bleeding through your paint. Sometimes that's how you can get like that nasty yellow look and stuff like that on the furniture after you've painted it. Sometimes it doesn't come out until you protect it. I get a lot of questions about that. So Boss is what fixes that. Wasn't really sure where I was going with this piece, so I did use clear, but it does come in white and gray as well. So if you're going, you know, depending on what color you're painting in the end, if you're going with white, I always use a white Boss just because it also helps a little bit with coverage. But this is going to block bleed through. It also blocks odor. So if you have a really stinky piece, you know, like a smoker's piece or something like that, definitely use Boss. I did put 2 coats on, and you do wait 24 hours before you paint it. So that's, you know, really important. Give it time to dry and create a good block. So 2 coats of that. I also stripped the top and, you know, did like a quick sand on it just to make it feel smooth. But that's it for the prep. Oh, sorry, I used some Dixie mud where the dog chewed. so that would come off nice and clean and smooth, not look quite as nasty. So that's all done. We're gonna go ahead, I'm gonna bring you in so you have a nice close-up, and we're gonna start working with the No Pain Gel Stain in Walnut. So I don't know if you guys have used this before. Hey, Helen. Yeah, I love the Gray Boss too. Great as well to help with coverage. You know, the paint covers really well anyway, but especially when you're going with white or even like driftwood, the Boss is perfect under there to help with coverage. So I just want to shake up my No Pain Gel Stain really good. We're going to stir it too. For the best experience, you just want to make sure that you've got it mixed up really nice. So let me go ahead and, of course, forgot to grab something to open it with. All right, here. So one thing I want to do, this is oil-based, so you want to wear gloves. It's not a simple soap and water cleanup. I've gotten it in my hair before and didn't realize till the next day I had to cut it out. But if you do get it somewhere else, before it dries, you can clean it with mineral spirits. That'll thin it out and clean it off. But definitely have my gloves on. So this is after I shook it up. This is walnut. It's a nice dark brown color. I do want to go ahead and stir it up as well. It looks like the shaking did pretty good, but sometimes you'll see like a thin oil on top. You want to make sure it gets all nice and mixed up. Pull everything up from the bottom. So you want to make sure that you have a good seal when you close this off. So it's not really a good idea to use it out of your can. Because if you can't get that really nice seal on it, you will get like a little leather overlay, which you can peel that leather off, but you're wasting some of the product. So it's best if you don't use it out of the can. With that being said, I do so quite a bit. So, hey, Tammy. Yeah. And you know, even the scrubby soap, like certain oil products I can clean up with scrubby soap, but I could not get this out at all. Didn't realize it for so long. So I actually just lost the comments here. Let me see if I can pull them back up right quick. I might be a little delayed. There we go. I've got it. I haven't tried vegetable oil though, but I will definitely try that. Thank you for that tip. All right, so I am going to apply this in a couple different ways. I'm going to go ahead and bring you in. I'm going to be using an applicator pad, but I also have just kind of an old chip brush here, because I do have some grooves in this piece that I want to make sure that I get into. I could have filled them in with Dixie mud. Even though I'm staining it, it comes in brown as well. But, you know, when you put the stain into some of these grooves, it turns it really dark. And when you have a weathered look anyway going on, then, you know, it looks good without filling it. And these are just tiny little, I think they call them wormholes when it's a piece this old. But I'm just using a chip brush, and I'm just kind of dipping in, and I'm just looking at those spots that I know I need to really get in and make sure that it's nice and filled in. If you don't do this, I'm going to ultimately apply this with an applicator pad. But if you don't get in these little holes, then they'll stay lighter, and then they're going to be really obvious. If you use this method, they blend right in, and you really can't even tell that they were there. They're just a little bit darker, and it looks more like character than an issue. So I'm just going to get a couple on the sides here. Since it's oil-based, you do have a really long work time with this. So I'm not worried about these little puddles of stain that I have here. If I was using the Voodoo Gel Stain, which is water-based, kind of sinks in more, but it dries much faster. I wouldn't be able to do this. So you only want to do something like this. Take this extra time with the oil-based stains. So I'm going to be using an applicator pad. I use these a lot for adding or putting on protectant and stuff like that. So this one's been used quite a bit. Sometimes I tint my protectant, so it kind of left a stain there. So I'm going to go ahead and use this because I do throw these away after I stain with them. So I'm going to stand off to the side, and the reason being is if you're standing in front, well, first you wouldn't be able to see, but you tend to create an arc with your hands. So I want to make sure that my lines are straight. So I normally either try to come down from an end, or I move my whole body. If I'm going from the front like it's a long dresser, I move my whole body with it. So all I'm doing here is I'm continuously kind of scrubbing this in. You can put it on and wipe it back, but that's the nice thing about the applicator pad. You don't really have to use those two steps. When you apply it with a brush, it goes on pretty thick, and you'll usually want to wipe some back. The applicator pad just kind of does all that for you. Got a little hair in there. So this is a pretty quick process. You do want to do this in a well-ventilated area. It is oil-based. Normally, if I wasn't doing a live, I would have a fan going to create a nice airflow. But just because of the live, I will do that as soon as I'm off here. I just want to make sure that, like I said, I have all those little holes filled in and the stain has gotten down in there. So you can see how beautiful and rich this looks. I love my oil-based stains. A lot of people are worried about using an oil-based stain. It just takes a little longer to dry, but it's really easy and user-friendly. When you use this applicator pad, they're very inexpensive. You can just toss it when you're done. So I've got this on relatively evenly. I'm going to come around to the front and take a look. But I want to go ahead and get these sides on as well. So this does take about, it's going to depend on, the humidity and the temperature. But this does take about 3 to 5 days before you're going to want to dry, to fully dry. And before you're going to want to protect it with a water-based protectant, which I will use a Satin clear coat on here. Let me just go ahead to this side. It will feel dry to the touch, probably in about 24 hours, but you want it to be dried thoroughly all the way through. Otherwise, you can pull it back, or you can have an issue with your water-based protectant not really sticking well. I've also got this taped off back here because I do not want to get this oil-based stain on a portion that I'm going to be painting. Because if I do put something water-based over the oil before it's fully dry, my paint's not going to stick to this. It will come off. So I just want to be really, really mindful of that. So I think I've got it all on here so you can see how quick that goes. Beautiful. And this applicator pad gives such even coverage. It just creates a gorgeous look. As this dries, it's going to even look more deep and rich. It may lighten up just slightly as it dries, but that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this back, and I'm going to drop you guys down because we are going to go ahead and start painting the bottom section. So to put on the second coat, Helen, you want to wait about 24 hours. I have done it sooner than that, but if you're new to the product, I would definitely wait 24 hours until you get a feel for it. Because sometimes if you add that second coat too soon, instead of darkening it up, it's actually going to pull that first layer back some. So you definitely want to make sure that it's fully dry. I have done it in as quick as 4 hours, but like I said, I don't recommend that unless you're really familiar with the product and kind of know how it feels, because I've also tried to do it too soon and had to stop. Yes, Espresso No Paint Gel Stain. I actually debated between this and walnut, but this is walnut. This wood is so dark to begin with that putting the walnut on it, I thought it would still give me that espresso-like look, which it is kind of. A lot of times if you put walnut on a lighter wood, it's going to look a little bit lighter because it matters, you know, your base matters as far as that's concerned. Oh, yes, perfect. And by the way, too, I did strip this first, and normally I do. But the no paint gel stain sits on top of your surface more so than sinking into it. So you can actually put this, I could have just went over this with no paint gel stain. I didn't have to strip and sand it. I just like that really clean look. So that's why I do that. And I like for the wood to fully take the stain. Sometimes when you have a protectant, you haven't stripped and sanded it, you just maybe rough it up. It doesn't, it has a different look to it, I think. But you do not have to strip and sand. And I usually do 2 coats if I don't strip and sand, by the way. So we've got all of this done, and we're actually doing really good on time. So this is actually 2 coats, and I'm hoping that we can do 1 coat on the top section, then I can come back in and do the second coat to see how we get here, because I'm actually using 2 different colors. I'm not using the color until the second coat with that Antebellum. So I'm going to move you guys back just a little bit because we're going to paint these sides here. Oops, here we go. And if I do miss any questions, definitely I will come back through and answer those after the lives. I would definitely use, so I prefer not to do spindles, but I think that's everyone who paints furniture. But I would definitely, I would use a sponge, or I would use an applicator pad. I probably wouldn't do it with a brush, unless it was just just a few little places to, you know, get it in. You could also take like a lint-free t-shirt, something like this. This is just a lint-free cloth. And you can also put it on this way. Just kind of, you know, go around the spindle with it. And that's one of the easiest ways to cover it, because it does take quite a bit longer. All right, so for this section down here, with my first coat, well, actually, let me just show you what I've done. So for this front section right here, I'm actually using these 4 colors. I've got Coffee Bean, which is a nice chocolate color, but it does kind of have a gray undertone if you lighten it up. And then I also have French Linen here, as well as Drop Cloth, which is just a creamy kind of antique white color, and then Antebellum, and that's where my color's coming from. So my first coat, though, I did not use Antebellum. I'm just using the Drop Cloth, French Linen, and the Coffee Bean. And this takes very, very little paint. I did, for the most part, completely blend this first coat on here. Just getting everything together. So not very much paint at all. I think you guys can kind of see what I've got going on here. Just a little bit of French linen. A little bit of drop cloth right there. And then just a little bit of the coffee bean. And I've already shaken these up. But if you were using like the little paint containers, you just want to stir those, make sure the paint is nice and mixed up. So I did go ahead. I really just want the coffee bean as a highlight. So I'm just using an art brush for the coffee bean. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and use, let's use a round small, mine's very well used, for the other two colors. And sometimes I switch brushes midway through, but let's go ahead and get started. So I've got my mister bottle here. Let me grab that. And I'm not spraying that directly on my piece on this first coat just yet. I do have, you can't see it, but my surface is kind of a little bit rough because I did use the clear boss on it. So this is going to accept the paint really well. I am going to go ahead and just put a little mist on my brush, just a little bit, so that the paint kind of glides on. And all I'm doing is taking this coffee bean and kind of shadowing out the edges where it would be a little bit darker. I'm going to go ahead and take my small round. And this is wet, but you can start with a wet or a dry brush and add it as you want. Just kind of laying out my color where I want it to be. I want to blend. But I don't want to add a lot of water to it yet. I want a little bit of texture, a little bit of blending. I want this to kind of be kind of an old look, but still kind of a little bit layered, maybe a little bit chippy looking in some areas, and then a nice smooth blend in other places. So I am going to go ahead and bring another brush out here. And for this part, I do prefer a dry brush when I want to bring some of my colors together a little bit. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and swirl them. They are still relatively dry. My paint is relatively dry. I mean, normally, you know, when you're blending, you see me misting a lot, but because I want this a little bit rougher looking, oops, that's a little bit light. Because I want this a little bit rougher looking, I am, hold on. This is my brush that I have not added any paint to. It's a round large here. So I've got it a little bit rougher, a little bit of texture going on where you saw me dabbing it, and the rest just kind of blended in a little bit. Okay, now I want to go ahead, this is my blending brush is what we're going to call this one. I want to go ahead and get the paint off that one. I want to keep that, oh hey Wanda, how are you? I know it's been a while since I've seen you. I was on vacation for a week, and this month I've been working on a really extensive custom. I just posted pictures to my page, and then I've also got a kitchen island job going as well as a bathroom vanity going. So I've been really kind of busy this month, but I will be back on the lives here going forward and on my page as well. So all I'm doing here is just, I'm going to go ahead and add some of this chocolate where I think some things should be shaded in. Go ahead. I'm not going to work on this part right here. I probably will only do one coat on these legs. I think I'm probably going to keep them more dark and really put most of the detail into this top area and this flat area with the shelf. So I've got my round small coming back in. I've just got a little bit of the French linen on it. But remember, I'm using the same brush. Oh, and I should have actually taped this off at the top. I'm going to go ahead and grab my blending brush and bring this together. So normally I wouldn't take it off, but I've already stained right now. So the cleanup for that staining is not quite so easy. So actually, probably before I go much further, I will go ahead and take it off. So this has already dried before I'd been able to mix the paint together. But what I'm going to do is just spray my brush a little tiny bit and then kind of wipe it off so it's not too much water. That should just give me enough moisture to bring this together how I want it. And again, I don't want this, I don't want it to look the same everywhere. There we go. This is my brush that I'm not adding paint to. This brush is solely just to bring everything together. So now I'm going to come down on here. I don't necessarily want a brush. I'm using more of a dry, layered method down here. Not as much blending, very, very dry. And I'm just dabbing to mix these together, adding more color. This is my first coat too, remember, because we're going to come back in with the Antebellum to really give it that unique look and add a little bit of color to it because I'm terrible with staying neutral. Is that just me? Every time I try to paint something neutral, I end up with a color. So I've put a little bit more on here, added a little French linen. Now I'm going to take my dry brush again, and I'm just going to start dabbing, trying to bring this paints in some. All right, I may not tape off that top. I was okay. Let's hope that the rest goes as smoothly. Let's go ahead and get this front section. So this is a drawer. I'm going to go ahead and pull it out some because I don't want to, we'll be adding Big Mama's butter to that so it'll slide easier. But I don't want to get that on the side here. So let's go ahead. I'm going to spray my brushes again because they're getting a little bit dry. We're going to go ahead back in with the chocolate up here. Kind of a little bit darker off to the side. Put some of this in here. And then I'm going to come in with some French linen again. And because I've already got some of this drop cloth in my brush, it's lightening up this French linen quite a bit. So I'm not so concerned with adding more drop cloth just because of how I can see the color difference here in what I'm doing. That's good for this area. Actually, I'm going to put just a tiny bit. You can see it's just a tiny, tiny bit of drop cloth on here. Kind of want to give it a little bit more of a highlighted look on this edge. Do a little dry brushing down here. Give it a little bit more depth. All of these little touches. And truthfully, had I not decided to add color in, I could really have this painted in this one coat. But again, I always like to have a little color, and I'm just misting my brush again. I don't want too much water on the piece. I'll be adding that shortly here with the second coat. So then let's go ahead. We're going to spin it and do the other side, and then we should be able to come back here so you can see how to apply that second coat. And this kind of quickly just gives you all the steps in order to kind of achieve this look up to this point. So we've got it on the other side. And again, I'm going to mist my brush. And I'm just kind of dabbing some of this in. Just where you would see a shadow. And again, I use the art brush because, you know, you really get these brushes, even the round smalls, it holds a lot of paint. So even sometimes when you think you only have a little bit of paint on here, you have quite a bit more than you think. So see, this is French linen. I'm just dabbing a little bit on, and I'm going to kind of streak it. So I'm not really trying to get that blend just yet. My brush is pretty dry at this point. I don't have a lot of water on it, but I'm not feeling like a significant pull or tug as I'm trying to go through with this. I went ahead and added a little more drop cloth. I'm using the same brush. Let's give it a little bit more of a highlight up here. This is just all about how you want it to look. How it looks for you when you kind of take a step back. I'm just adding a little bit more of this coffee bean in a couple spots. Maybe a little bit up here, a little over here. Now I'm taking this round large that I do not add paint to. I am going to go ahead and wipe it off. And I'm going to go ahead and pull these colors together. I can swirl it. So that is a little bit dry there. I'm going to add a little bit of water so I can activate that paint some. And I want to brighten this up just a tad bit. So I'm just kind of tapping my brush. And let's go ahead and do that. Like that texture in there. And this all, like I said, this goes into how this second layer will look. This paint reactivates. So when I put this Antebellum on here, it's all of these colors underneath. By the way, just to let you know, I did not tape this off. Let's say I get quite a bit of paint up there. I can actually come back and go, as soon as it dries, it's very porous, I can go right back over it with the walnut gel stain. It'll suck it right in, the paint will. You really won't be able to tell there was paint up there. It'll be just like a nice little interesting section. So that's just kind of food for thought. One reason I'm not I was gonna stop and tape it off, but I decided not to. So I'm gonna add, I wanted this to look a little more blendy. Got a whole lot of textured looks going on there. But I do want some streaky in some areas. So I'm just gonna go ahead and run this back and forth. Not a big deal because it's just my first coat. So let's go ahead and go back and we'll do these little posts here. Then we'll go around and I should be able to have just enough, hopefully I have just enough time. Maybe I might just do this front post here. Because we've only got about 10 more minutes and I kind of want to show you how you get to that final look. So actually, let me just finish this up. This doesn't take very long. It's just that on the videos, you don't really have a lot of time, especially if you're doing multiple steps. So, see, and this, I love putting this coffee bean together with like drop cloth and stuff like that, because once it mixes into that drop cloth, it actually comes out and it gives it some gray in there. Same with the French linen, multiple shades of gray. Just gives it a lot of depth. And this is what gives it depth too. I'm going to go ahead and leave this alone. Hey, I see some comments coming up. I just want to let you guys know, I see some comments flying by here on this camera. And I've got the video up, but I'm not seeing anything else down here. So I'm guessing that I'm probably not seeing everything, but I will get to it once the live is over. All right, so bringing it back to this side, and hopefully this is dry enough. I did wait longer earlier. I'm going to go ahead and plug in my heat gun right quick. I have a little bit of time, and it doesn't take long to paint one of these small sections, so should be able to get through it. And ultimately what I plan to do with this, you kind of saw the front there. I plan to do a black wax. I might do some dry brushing with Caribbean Moonshine Metallics. Very, very lightly. I don't want to go overboard with it. Maybe a little bit of bronze gilding wax. Whoops. Whoops, sorry, I thought I was unplugging the fan and I just unplugged the light. So let me fix that. There we go. Actually, I just unplugged my internet now, but it should be fine because I'm running off of the mobile network. You guys are still there. Thanks for bearing with me. Just want to get some of these dry corners up here. I did add some wood you bend on the front as well. And when I post the final picture, I will put all of the products that I use, as well as, you know, the wood you bend, keyhole, number. All right, so I should be, it's a little bit wet, a little bit still on the bottom here. If it messes up while I'm doing this, that's okay. I can always go back off the live and paint it. Normally you would give it at least a couple hours in between, or 1 to 2 hours I like to give it in between coats, especially when I'm going to be adding a lot of water on the next coat. So all I'm going to do now is I still have that same drop cloth coffee bean and French linen on here. I'm just going to add in a little antebellum for the second coat. So when I'm doing the second coat on here, I want it to be maybe a little drippy in places, a little stucco looking in places, as well as a blendy look. So for this, I did go ahead and spray my piece, but I don't want to make it too wet. Sorry, I don't have you twisted around far enough. I don't want to make it too wet, so I'm going to go in here again with some coffee bean on the edges where I'd have my shadowing, and I do always like to paint my shadowing in. I don't just like to do it with the best dang wax. I like a lot of depth when you're looking at these pieces. So see, I'm adding a lot of water. That's one of the major differences. So I've got another round large. And I've got a little antebellum. And I'm just going to add a little antebellum. I want it nice and wet though for this. I want it to really blend in. You see how wet and drippy this is? It's almost like a watercolor going across. And what happens is when it gets so wet, it also is pulling back a little bit from the first coat. So now I'm taking some drop cloth. I'm going to give this, it's going to shade out this antebellum a little bit. And this is all about how you want it to look. So I've got a lot of brushes out here. I'm painting for the look of it, so I'm just going to start in this section over here. Sometimes you just want to step back. So in some places, I'm kind of trying to neutralize this antebellum a little bit, tone it down some. I'm flicking this here because I want that to be a little bit more blended, not quite as textured. But each time I'm hitting it, because of how wet it is, it's pulling back a little bit. And it's showing all that nice, I don't know that you can see it on camera, but it's showing a lot of that first coat in there. So when you realize that your brush that you want to kind of bring the colors together with is getting a little bit too wet, or it's got a little too much of one color on it, you just wipe it off, dry it out a little bit. I just want to bring this back some. So you can see over here, because I'm not working on this section, how you have that big drip coming down. I'm not worried about that. I don't want anything like that, but I haven't done the second coat here, so I'm not concerned. I'm just looking at this area in here and making sure that it's what I want. And I feel like I have a little too much Antebellum. I'm going to tell you something else too. As this dries, the look is going to change some. Dry it off a little bit again. And where I added that extra dark, I just want to blend it some. Okay, so I think I kind of like where we're at now. I want a tiny bit of Antebellum, I think, added into this bottom section. Kind of make it look a little cloudy. So I'm very lightly circling here to give it kind of a more ethereal, cloudy look in that section, not so much stucco. And that's pretty much it. I just keep overworking it now. Get that out a little bit. Perfect. So that's all you do. You don't want everything to be matchy-matchy, or at least I don't. That's not my goal. I want it to look like it's worn in different places over time, and as I do the final steps and the details on it, it will come together that way and look more aged, as if it has layers of paint. Now, I actually didn't get much of the mister up there, but sometimes it can, like if you put water on it, it can spot it a little bit. But all I really need to do is, for something like that, once the water dries, might have a recessed tiny little spot in there. But something like that with that fine mister bottle, I can just rub it over again with the applicator pad that I used, and that'll smooth it all the way out. But that's it. I won't do this process on the legs. It'll more or less just be on the shelf in this top section. These legs over here, I think I'm going to keep more wood. I don't know. I'm kind of at an impasse there. I haven't quite decided. But that's it. Like I said, I should have this piece done by the end of the week, so you can go to my page and see how it turns out in the final pictures. But you guys take care. Have a wonderful night. Thanks for hanging out. Please, again, follow me on Facebook. Share this video if you know anyone who would like to see it or may want to know how to do this technique or process. But thanks again. If I missed any questions, I will answer them later. Thank you, Dixie Belle, as well. And have a good night. Thank you.